This is an Easter egg, and you might think that's just a dumb item, but in 2004scape, it's worth about 100 million gold. Getting a rare item was my main goal for this account, but I got that in 2 months. So that left me with basically just an Easter egg, 4 months to go, and I wasn't quite sure what I was going to do next. I've been playing Runescape for over 20 years at this point, and about 6 months ago, I was randomly scrolling on YouTube for some Runescape content, and a private server video randomly popped up on my feed. A private server is where someone uses RuneScape's code and creates a custom version of the game that they host for other players. And normally I have no interest in these private servers, but this one was different and actually caught my eye. It was called 2004scape, also known as the Lost City Project, which is a private server made by some volunteers who've rebuilt RuneScape to be exactly the way it was back in 2004. The guy in the video I was watching was just out killing hill giants and having a good time, and I realized that in this game, there aren't 100 more efficient things to do all the time. So just doing something like killing hill giants is actually meaningful, and that made it a lot more fun. So I finished the video, went to bed, woke up, got some coffee, and immediately made my 2004scape account the Slayer. And I set out with one goal at the start, to get a rare item. But there are 3 major things I didn't fully consider when starting this journey. The first is that there was no Grand Exchange back in 2004. In modern RuneScape, the Grand Exchange is like an online market where you could easily buy and sell items with other players at any time. So if I wanted something in 2004scape, I had to either get it myself or find another player who was selling that item. The second is that everything was slower than the current version of RuneScape. Over time, the skills got faster to train, but in 2004, every skill was harder and the items were more valuable. And the third is that I was a whole year late to the party. Most people had found out about this server back in early 2025, so I was going to be pretty far behind everyone else and I had a lot of catching up to do. But 6 months later, I ended up being ranked top 3,000 on the server, and my bank was worth more than I ever expected it to be. And I did all of this without ever going over level 45 combat. I played for a few weeks before I started recording content on the server because I thought it would just be something I hop on for a week or two and quit, but I quickly got addicted to this and started my series right away then. But I started out my account pretty much the way I start every account. I did some nostalgic quests, did some woodcutting behind the Lumbridge general store, fished some trout and salmon, and just got some of my starter stats up. And those things brought a nice refreshing feeling, especially after being stuck on endgame content for a long time. But I started to notice a big problem. It was taking forever to get everywhere because this version of the game didn't have any stamina potions, or it didn't even have the basic run energy potions at the time. So I decided it was time to train everyone's least favorite skill, agility. So in 2004scape, every 6 agility levels gives you a boost to your run energy restoration, which is going to save hours and hours of time, especially in this old version that doesn't have as many teleports. So to start, I did the tourist trap quest and used the lamps on agility, which instantly brought me to level 26 and allowed me to skip the early courses like the Gnome Stronghold. Then I climbed a lot of monkey bars in the Edgeville dungeon to get level 52 agility, and then that brought me to the Wilderness course, which was the best way to train agility back in 2004. But then we ran into another massive problem. There was a group of PKers, which if you don't know, that's short for player killers, who decided to take over the entire Wilderness agility course. They were there every single day and killing people that were just trying to train their agility levels and not even getting any loot from it. However, some people that really wanted to train their agility paid these guys millions of gold to be able to train this skill. I was slain by them a few times, but I refused to give them the money that they wanted and decided to move elsewhere. So do you remember earlier when I said I was doing all this at level 45 combat? Well, that's because to pickpocket the Artie Knight in 2004scape, you need to be a lower level than him to have the left-click pickpocket option. Otherwise, the left-click option becomes attack, and thieving is a lot harder to train then. So that's what I did. I pickpocketed the Artie Knight for hours on end next to this guy named Pasta, who actually turned out to be a pretty famous RuneScape YouTuber named Autumn Elegy, who was just going undercover at the time, which is kind of funny. But the grind wasn't quite as smooth as I expected. The Artie Knight killed me a bunch of times while I wasn't paying attention, ended up losing a couple 100k each time, so I probably lost over 1 million gold just from not paying attention and being stupid at the Artie Knight. And that's because in 2004scape, there's no gravestone mechanic. So if you die, your stuff is gone and another player can just pick it up right away. And that's just another reason why 2004scape can be such a challenge sometimes compared to modern RuneScape. Also, during this thieving grind, I would go over to this gem stall every 6 minutes or so and take some gems from it. I can show you my gem collection right now. We've gotten hundreds of gems from this grind, which is a ton of free crafting XP and jewelry for us later on. But after getting 92 thieving, Thieving, which is the halfway point in XP to 99, I decided I would take a little bit of a break and start focused on making money as fast as possible. Around this time, I realized that the price of rares was going up really fast, like a couple mil every week, so I figured if I don't get one soon, I might never be able to get one. And that's when I discovered something that would change the future of my account, and that was the Rune Essence mine. Raw materials like Essence were never really worth much on RuneScape because bots kept the supply so high, so they became really cheap. But 2004scape doesn't have bots, which makes the resource gathering much more profitable. And also, most mining in 2004scape requires you to click on each and every single rock, but with Rune Essence, you just have to click it once and it fills your entire inventory. This turned mining from one of the worst AFK skills in the game to one of the best in the game, and it gave me something to do whenever I wanted to play the game but couldn't really pay my full attention. But I couldn't just sit here and mine this same rock for 6 months until I got a rare item. Doing the same thing would get too repetitive and would be so boring, so I definitely would have been burnt out well before the 6 months was over if I kept doing that. So I always saw the same players go into the archery shop every day and wondered what they were doing. And then I figured out that players were paying a lot of money for the bulk supplies like arrows and runes, so I started buying them up from the shops and sold them to players at a higher price. Now, before you go and call me a scalper, I'm sure people were more than willing to pay to not have to sit there and click buy on a bunch of arrows, so I'm sure this was beneficial for both parties. And without the grand exchange, some of these items took a while to sell, but eventually I made over 10 million GP from doing this. But just like essence mining, after doing this for quite a while, I needed a change of pace and decided it was time to try something else. And that was right around the time I got word of a player who was looking for nature rune runners. And running nature runes is when one person just stands there training their rune crafting, and there's a bunch of people that are running back and forth to the bank and bringing them essence. And then the rune crafter will usually pay them a bunch of money or a bunch of runes in return. So I did this for a few nights and easily made a couple mil doing it. I thought that method was a lot more fun and engaging than just buying items from a shop, but the problem is that you need to find a really rich person who's willing to pay the runners to train their rune crafting. After that, I was busy with IRL stuff for a while, so I went back to AFK mining essence for a little bit until I found another one of the best money makers in the game. And that brought us right to the Gnome Stronghold, because herblore secondaries are a huge pain to get in 2004scape and takes a lot of time, so people will pay good money to not have to go out of their way to get them. And that's why buying chocolate bars and chocolate dust became one of our best money makers. I made a video about this method, but I easily made 400 or 500k an hour doing this, and it was by far the most money I was making on the server. At this point, my cash stack was around 20 mil, and I was getting really close to being able to afford a rare item. In this game, rare items are old items from holiday events that were released one time, and after that, you can never get them again, and that's why they become so valuable. The first rare that I wanted was a Halloween mask, but those were about 80 mil at the time, and we still weren't even close to that, so I decided to put up a buy offer for the Easter egg instead. I figured that even though you can't wear it, it's still super valuable, and it's going to go up in value, and I could potentially trade it for another rare later on. That's when a player messaged me, and we started negotiating. My initial offer was for 23 mil cash, but we settled on a value of around 28 million because I included some items as well. So after 2 months of grinding, we finally accomplished our goal of getting a rare item, and that became the best decision I ever made on this account, because that same Easter egg is now worth over 100 mil. So that was by far the best investment I've ever made on RuneScape, but later on I'm going to explain why that's not such a good thing after all. But before I get into that, I need to tell you about a cult that's been on this server. It was around this time that I started to notice a large group of players that would be walking around the map, always dressed in green and doing these weird rituals. All of this seemed to be centered around one item, a cabbage. A cabbage is the most worthless item in RuneScape, but why are these people literally worshipping it? So I did what any reasonable person would do. I befriended some of the cabbage cult and was able to infiltrate one of their secret meetings. And I went into this expecting to uncover some strange stuff, but after a couple week investigation into this cult, I determined that this group is just a bunch of guys that really like cabbages. And that's just the one thing about this server that I can't explain to anyone that hasn't played it yet. In OSRS, there's very little player interaction these days, but with 2004scape, you have drop parties, PKing events, and apparently even cabbage cults. But anyways, enough about the cabbage cult. Let's get back to the problem I was talking about before. I really wanted to save up for a rare item that I could actually wear. This Easter egg is cool and all, but all it really does is sit in my bank. So I got back to work, grinding away at the essence mine, picking some flax, but then I took a bit of a break because there was a second account I started to work on and had some IRL stuff going on, and I just wasn't logged in as much as I was the first couple months. So a few weeks later, I came back and realized that the rare prices just skyrocketed. What I initially got in 2 months would now take hundreds of hours of playtime to save up for, and that just really seemed out of reach to me at this point. So you're probably wondering how my Easter egg going up to 100 mil could possibly be a bad thing. That's because it made the rares that I really wanted, like a Halloween mask or a Santa hat, to be over 200 mil, and they seemed even more out of reach at that point. So I was still planning to save up for a new rare item, but I just knew at that point it was going to take a long time. But that brings me to my other account that I mentioned a minute ago. Meet Chunk 2004, my Lumbridge 1 chunk locked account. A chunk account is an account where you're restricted to just one area of the game, and you can't move on until you've completed every single task in that area. It's a completely different type of miserable, but I love it. I have a series that I'm working on for that account, and it has some really interesting grinds, but the problem is that it took a lot of time away from the Slayer. But anyways, back to the main story. At this point, I was about 4 months in. I had one rare item, but a second one was really starting to seem out of reach. So I decided I was going to focus on getting some skills up for a bit and put my goal of getting a second rare item to the side for now. The Wizard's Guild. To get in, you need level 66 magic, and inside is the best rune essence mine in the whole game. Now, normally you would get 66 magic by casting spells on something like fire giants, but that would give us hit points XP, and by the time we got 66 magic, our combat level would be above the limit of 45 that we talked about earlier. So I had to find a way to get 66 magic without attacking any monsters, and that left me with one option, Alching. And Alching is literally turning items into gold, so this will help us achieve our goal of getting XP and another rare item at the same time. Seems pretty simple, right? Just alch 5,000 bows and that'll get us to 66 magic. But no, because that also means we have to get 5,000 bows, 5,000 nature runes, 5,000 flax, and then alch everything. All those materials cost a lot of money, and since I'm still trying to get another rare item eventually, that was just a lot of money that I couldn't spend right now. So I got each of these materials by hand. I started out by getting 44 rune crafting to craft nature runes, then I went to Karamja to craft all 5,000 of them. I used this really cool method where you bring the noted essence and then you sell them to this nearby general store to unnote them. After I had the nature runes, I went back to Seer's village and I fletched all the U logs in my bank into unstrung bows, and then it was time to get the bowstrings. To do that, I had to pick 5,000 flax and spin them all into bowstrings. And I tested a few different locations with this and determined that Seer's village was definitely the best place to spin flax in the game. So I spent a few days on that, and once we had 5,000 bowstrings, we could finally attach them and we had everything we need to start the alching grind. I decided to do all my alching at the Grand Tree because if you remember earlier, we were buying chocolate bars here, so we came back so while we were alching, we could buy them as soon as it restocked. I was also stocking up on some farming supplies like pineapples and oranges because while farming isn't in 2004 yet, eventually the server is going to be updated to 2005 and the farming supplies are going to become a lot more valuable. And finally, after a long time of alching, we hit level 66 magic and we're finally able to enter the Wizard's Guild. And we did all of this just to mine the same rock that we've been mining for this whole 6 months. But the real difference is it's much closer to a bank and we can make a lot more money per hour doing it this way. Over all this time, I started a lot of random collections for items on the account like spinach rolls, buckets of milk, and then my favorite one, beer. At the end of every episode I did, I added 100 beers to my collection from a different bar around the game, and I tried to do like a little history review of each of the bars. And that brings me to where I am now. That's everything here. 6 whole months of progress, 900 total level, 92 thieving, and I did all that at 45 combat. And I also want to show you a quick bank video to finish this off. Here we have the glorious Easter egg, and we don't have too much cash right now because I've been investing into a lot of supplies for the future Slayer update. My main investments right now have been dragon bones, lobsters, terramins, pure essence, things like that, so we'll see how those do over time. I also have quite a few runes saved up here. I'm just collecting them for now, but maybe I'll sell those at some point if they get to a good price. I have 86,000 willow logs. I was buying those up for a while in preparation of the fletching update, and I plan to sell them eventually, but like I said, there's no grand exchange on 2004scape, so selling a bulk amount of items like this can be quite difficult sometimes. 2 things I would have liked to achieve in this 6 months were 99 thieving and 1,000 total level, but I just fell a bit short of those. So for the next 6 months, I'd like to focus on getting 99 thieving, getting 50 million thieving experience after that, getting 1200 total level, and buying another rare item that I can actually wear. My 1 chunk Iron Man is also going to continue, and I have a new video coming out for that pretty soon, and the grinds are about to get a lot worse on there. 6 months ago, I decided to make the Slayer because I watched a video of a guy killing hill giants, and all of that led me to accomplishing 900 total level, a friendship with a cabbage cult, 600 beers, and a super rare Easter egg. I hope you all enjoyed the story of my journey on 2004scape. There's a lot of really exciting updates coming to this server in the future like Slayer, so I hope to see you guys at the 1 year mark. If you enjoyed this, I ask you to please subscribe to my channel and drop a like on the video to tell YouTube to show it to more people, and let me know in the comments if you've had any good or bad experiences so far on 2004scape. If you've made it this far, I love you. Thanks for watching, guys. Peace.